Yeah, Liam, I'm curious to hear more about your process of how you decide what you're going to write.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do feel as though this is something that I am navigating, grappling with quite often in terms of what to write. I, like many artists, I think, feel like I move through the world with yeah, plenty of stories burning inside of me, needing to be told, to be a complete cliche, um, but the conflict I feel is this sort of tension between what I feel I have to write and feel like what I can write or get to write, and then also what I'm able to write is sort of like a third kind of component of that intersection. I often feel envious of folks who maybe can just write about the lamp or the coffee or whatever, as opposed to the other side of that coin being the things we need to say to impart some kind of um, change or productive change using art as both storytelling but also as kind of a tool to a degree. But then sometimes yeah, I mean, I wrote the piece, the green building for Prairie Theater Exchange, that came out in yeah, earlier this year, and that was one of the first times where I felt that I had just written something um, that was just a story. Like, I just wrote a story. I didn't feel like I was having to tell a trans story, actually.
Where do you feel like that pressure is coming from? Is it coming from trans community? Is it coming from institutions? Is it coming internally? Where's it coming from?
I mean, I think to a degree, like all of the above. It's often my driving force is this reality that we feel that there is a lack of trans representation, in theater, on stages. Um, I feel motivated by that, but then it adds this, I think, pressure to represent, uh, an entire world of people that I cannot and will not and should not and don't represent in that way.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Just I feel like the theater industry's idea also of what is trans theater or what is trans work, in terms of I personally have felt pressured from or not necessarily even pressure, just an expectation from some theatre partners who I'm very grateful to have had opportunities with, and I felt like a little bit of like, oh, we'd like a trans work, and I'm sort of I guess I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, yes, I'll write a trans work. It's about climate change, and there may be one or more trans characters in it, but none of the characters are going to come out. None of them are going to go through physical transition. And yes, all of those layers will be permeating the work, but also they're permeating the work because I have a lens. One of my many lenses and how I move through the world is my experience as a trans person. And, I'm really relishing kind of being able to, I think that kind of phase that we need to go through of the 101 stories, of the coming out stories, of the, I think that there's a real place for them, and and they're important in a lot of trans artists careers and trajectories, and lives and worlds. And also I think there's so much more that we get to explore, and really interesting work we can make when we give ourselves the freedom, and when we're encouraged from outside also to make all the works about all the other things. And and for me that's still sort of I'm very clear that my purpose in making theater is to create change in the world. It just means that I get to kind of have a broad lens of the sort of change that I'm interested in making, and my transness is one aspect that shapes my viewpoints and one aspect that permeates into my work, but certainly not the only one.